I've met people who self-harm for attention. It's insane. One day when they invent those like customizable eyes that you can put in and you won't get an eye strain, just waiting for that day.
People like you will only invent that. The way you are building metaverse into your app and you're, working with the concepts of AI and stuff. I think people like you will only invent the problem first and then solve it for us, no? People pleasing has been one of the biggest issue that my generation has dealt with, which I feel has kind of gotten a little better with the generation now. The Gen Z is very clear about saying no. They're very clear about their boundaries. For a matter of fact, that you guys grow up with having your own personal room and personal space. I grew up in a house where 5 of us were in one room.
I think your generation was, I don't know if it's the right word, but was the whitewashed one. And my generation is the one that we actually are trying to find our desi roots and connect back to our culture.
It's just so strange. This is completely the opposite world and the opposite problem. In our times, we would have dictionaries which will translate Hindi to English. And now it's the other way. I mean, who would have thought that world would evolve so much so fast? Hi, welcome to the Journey Within podcast, where we deep dive into the personal growth journeys of our guests. In this show, we explore the experiences, insights, and lessons learned from individuals who have embarked on a journey of self-discovery through life's ups and downs, finding purpose and meaning, and ultimately becoming the best versions of themselves. Join us as we reflect on life, gain wisdom, and inspire each other to keep growing in our own journeys within. Today, I have with me a child prodigy on my show. She's the youngest entrepreneur to be featured on Shark Tank India. She's also the recipient of Bal Puraskar, which was given to her by our Prime Minister, Modi ji. Please welcome Anoushka Jolly on my show. Hi, Anoushka. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. At such a young age, you're all of 14 now, you're already a founder for Inner Arc and Kavach App. So you're building businesses already. I'm just so impressed by this, but how did it all start for you?
So it all started because I went through the issue of bullying myself. I actually got bullied when I was in third grade. I was 8 years old. And these two of my closest friends, I used to go to school every day, talk to them like they were my everything. They were my whole world. And all of a sudden, they started leaving me out. They started saying all these rude things to me, making fun of my dark skin, curly hair. And I started becoming very insecure. I didn't like talking to them. And they started saying things like, I'm not your friend anymore, and all of that. And I could really see I used to be a very happy child. Like, my name's Anoushka Jolly, and I was always jolly. I was making my friends laugh. But after that, I could see like how my self-esteem and my happiness just sort of dropped, and I wasn't the same girl that I used to be anymore. And it really affected me. And honestly, at that time when you get bullied, people who don't get bullied, it's not easy for them to understand what it feels like to be in that situation, because you feel like the whole world is against you, even though it's just one or two people saying those things. It makes you feel like, like somebody is overpowering you and just taking over your life, and you feel worthless, you feel useless. And coming from such a good family where I was so loved, I always had great teachers, great parents, great friends. I always had great friends. But after this, I could see just how worthless, how useless, and how horrible I felt. And I could see, like, in third grade, that's actually when I academically peaked, because I put so much pressure on myself. When you are going through such a tough thing in your life, you sort of try to find an outlet. And my outlet at that time was academics and study. So I just put so much of myself into that, that I just wasn't able to catch a break. So after that, there was one incident that was my tipping point, and it still sort of bothers me to talk about it because it was a low point. And one day, I think our teacher had like left the classroom for something, and I was walking to my chair, and 2 seconds before I could get there, my bully, like, she pulled down my pants and she humiliated me in front of the whole class. And that's when that's when everything stopped, like, to somebody watching it, or to a teacher, or to an adult, that could have been just an embarrassing moment. But because it had been happening for such a long time, and just because, like, when you're that small, these 20 people are, you know the only
Sort
thing
of
you
your
care
world.
about. Yeah, exactly. And so it broke me, and I remember I went to the washroom and I cried and I said all these horrible things about myself. And that's when I decided I'm going to talk to my parents about it, because that this is something that was getting too much. And I have to give my parents credit for that too, because they always made me feel like I could talk to them about anything. And this was something I had no knowledge, like, what was going on, why was this happening. So when I talked to them about it, they told me that they also didn't know. They researched, they found out, they told me that this is bullying. It happens to a lot of kids, it's very common. And I actually, that was the point where I decided I was going to change everything. And I had a conversation with my dad that day. So these girls, they used to make me keep their plates, tie their shoelaces and stuff. So my dad told me, next time they do that, how about you stand up for yourself and you refuse? And see, my mom and dad could have easily just gone to the teacher, talked about it, gotten me pulled out of that class maybe. But they instead empowered me to go and face my bullies myself. And that's something that, when I, like, reflect back upon it, it really helped me. And that's what that shaped me as a person as well, just that one moment. So it was breakfast time, and these girls, they asked me to keep their plates, so I collected everybody's plates and I headed to the sink. But I don't know, there was some fire, there was something that just lights up inside of you. And I turned around midway and I went back and I gave everyone their plates. And I said, let's keep our plates together. So it wasn't like I was mean or anything. I just told them to the face that, okay, how about we just go together? And then they all got up, we all smiled and we kept our plates together. So it wasn't like that. I learned that standing up for yourself isn't necessarily like punching someone in the face. Of course, if you have to defend yourself, at times it can be. But those girls were very small. Also, they didn't know what they were doing exactly. I'm sure even they, now that they look back upon it, they must feel sorry for me as well. So then I sorted it out. I started getting out of it, and I became my normal self again. And that's when I started learning more about bullying and what was happening to me. I got interested into this. I started researching about it, talking to teachers, parents, students around me. I still remember the first PPT I created. It was called Open Your Heart, Open Your Mind, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was just 9 years old. And then I signed up for this academy, Young Entrepreneurs Academy. And so the age limit for that was, I think, 11 and above. And I was 9. I had this website created, I wrote all the content for it. And my dad and his team helped me out. And they wouldn't accept like people below 11. But then somehow my dad like sent them the link to the website, talked a bit about me, and I'm in the history, I'm the youngest like applicant to enter. And Namita ma'am owns that academy. I met her at Shark Tank as well, like a few years later. So she was very happy to see me. And that's when it all started. And I started going to different schools, taking sessions. And that's how my work started.
Anushka, are you still friends with those two girls? Those were your bullies a few years back.
So, one girl actually, I realized a few years later that she was also getting bullied and she was getting pressurized by that other girl. So me and her, we really bonded, and now we're good friends. She's a very close family friend. The other girl, I held a grudge for her for a few years, for a very long time. But then I realized that if she hadn't given me a hard time, I wouldn't be as successful as I am today. So I owe it to her.
Are you able to transform that grudge into gratefulness? Are you able to see it
Certainly.
from that space that, it gave you an opportunity, or adversity you converted
Yeah,
into an opportunity for yourself?
absolutely. If she didn't do that to me, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
So now, if something negative or bad happens to you, do you have the ability to understand in that very moment that this is leading you towards something big and positive?
Absolutely. And I see that happening in all arenas of my life, whether it's my grades or whether it's school, something or the other. I will always, look at it from a positive light. And in that moment, I will obviously, like, I might cry or I might feel really bad. And it's completely normal to feel bad. But after a point of time, I look at it from a different light and I evaluate the situation and I'm like, wait, this is actually really good. And
Hmm.
an example of that, actually, my school. So there's been a student council in my school, in 6, 7, 8, 9. That's middle school in our school. Have a baby council, like eight kids, okay, who are selected from the whole grade. So I've been in the council 6, 7, 8, and I'm a very dedicated student. I love my school. My school's always supported me as well, and so getting a president was actually what I wanted to do. In ninth, that's the main head council that does everything. So I really wanted to be school president of middle school, and everybody around me was like telling me that अब तो president of India ने award दे दिया, अब तो president बनोगे.
Hmm.
And I was getting all this like hype. Then I didn't get it. I got vice president instead.
Hmm.
And I would say the first moment I got that, I felt disappointment instead of feeling gratitude and feeling amazing that, oh my God, I'm the vice president of my school. And then I remember I was not feeling really good that day. I came home and then I talked to my parents. And then my parents made me realize that, like, there are reasons why you didn't get president. Because imagine if you would have been president and you would have been like managing all this, it would have been so much pressure. But now that somebody else is president, and that person who's president is a very good friend of mine, so it's not like we can't collaborate. um, I'm still able to get stuff done. And after the situation, I actually realized how stupid it was to cry about being vice president. Like, that is so stupid because it's a great position. And I'm very happy that I get to work for my school, who's already done so much for me. So,
Anushka,
yeah.
how do you balance your school life with your entrepreneurial life? I talk about work life balance to leaders and, their personal lives versus the
Yeah.
work. I don't know if school life balance is the right terminology for it or not.
It is.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, how do you balance your school with your entrepreneurial life? A, that. And does your school, like you said, supports you, but what kind of support is needed from a school for you to be available at your other businesses, so to speak?
So, so school life balance, it's basically just time management. I'll tell you that. And I get my time management skills from my dad. So luckily, my dad, he's an entrepreneur, and all his life he's been like three places at a time. So he knows how to do that. And all his strategy, his planning, that's what helps me get through my exams, my daily
Oh,
timetable,
is he actively
everything.
involved into your life all the time?
Yeah, yeah. Both my parents are like full time into me, and they probably spend more time on me than they spend on their own business, which
Yeah.
is important as well. Like, I talk about parenting is a full time job, and a lot of parents just think that it's like, ha, bacha paal liya. It's not like that, Like, you have to put your heart and soul into that kid if you want that kid to flourish in life. You need to be emotionally there for that kid. So I'm lucky I had those parents. And my dad, he basically gave me the strategy, and that strategy, I write down what I've done in a day. Like, I make a standard timetable, and I decide a standard time that I want to be productive in a day. So maybe 9 hours is my goal. 4 hours can be studying, and 5 hours can be my other work that I do. So
Where is school in these 9 hours?
studying only, like,
Okay.
let's say. And this is like on a holiday, because I utilize my holidays to study because I'm not there in school. So this, and then I note down what I've done every single day, in a week, what I've done every hour, and I compare it to my standard. So standard 9, actual maybe I've done 10 or maybe I've done 9, or maybe I've done 7. Okay, and deviation is what how much you've deviated. So it could be in minus, as in you've not achieved your goal, or it could be in plus, where you've done an extra amount of hours. So that hour, like, that record that you keep, that's going to help you balance everything. Like, I got everything done, from my work to my events to, I know how much time I need to give to each arena, and how much energy I need to devote in that week for that aspect.
Anushka, in my times, there was a lot of pressure on us to score a perfect 100 or a 90 at least. It wasn't accepted. Anything lesser than that, you're not hardworking enough. And studies were a very, very major part of a student's life. But I think the times are changing now. Kids your age are doing multiple things. You're dabbling
Yeah.
into a bunch of roles and figuring out what works the best for you. And when you do that, probably you don't have all the units of your energy going towards your academics. So,
Mm.
how do you manage that? Are you a straight A student? And if yes, then how do you manage that? And if not, then how do you deal with the validation that does not come from being a straight A?
So I definitely face that problem, because I used to be a straight A student, getting all, so in my school, 8 is the highest, so getting all eights. But then, because of my work, because I'm so busy, like, I miss a lot of classes, and my school's obviously okay with that. They are ready to support me. And so I'm not able to get that perfect 8. Like, I am still at a 6, maybe at a 7, because I still put in work, and I put in hard work, because I like genuinely learning and getting grades. But I know it's not realistic, and it's not possible for me to get that 8. I have my priorities pretty clear, that I'm not going to really focus on this. I'm going to focus on my work, because that's what drives me. But like, sometimes when you're such a well scoring student for a very long time, you do build that need for, like, academic validation. You do want to get those eights. And I have, like, my friends, my two closest friends, their names are Saira and Dia, and they are both extremely dedicated. Like, they are so dedicated. They study so much more than me, and, like, they are so hardworking. And I'm, like, physically not able to devote as much time to studies as much as they are. And so they obviously always help me out if I'm in a situation. But getting out of that need, or that circle of academic validation of grades, is so, so important. And it's something that I'm still working on, and it still bothers me sometimes when I don't see those A's and those eights. But then I realize, you see all of these case studies, they didn't get all these successful, like, successful people, they didn't get where they are because they necessarily got that 90, or they got that 100. It's about, like, aiming for the 90, aiming for the 100, in whatever field you want to do well in. So it doesn't
Hmm.
have to be like, not every successful person, not every valedictorian is successful in their life. Like,
Hmm.
90% of people who go to a Harvard, or maybe go become valedictorian, are still not happy and still not successful. So it's not about that. It's just about loving what you do, and doing great stuff, whether it's, maybe like my friends, whether it's studies, or for me, like, it's my work, it's the work I do, mental
Hmm.
health. So it just depends on you
But do
thing.
you chill and party? It doesn't seem like your life has a lot of time in
I
it.
chill and party the most. I chill and
How do you
party more
make
than
time for that?
anyone. um
You didn't put into those 9 hours of your calendar, these party hours.
First of all, I love what I do. So, like, work is party for me. Like, this is party for me. I wouldn't trade this for anything. So, that's also a big component. If you don't wake up every morning and you're like, damn, I'm really excited to do work today, then your life's not fulfilling. So, firstly, that's it. And secondly, my friends, um, I have such friends who understand, like, my capacity and my capability. Like, if I have something really important, and I say, let's say I'm not able to make it to their birthday, they are not going to feel bad. They won't be like, oh, you didn't come because you're too busy for us. They don't think like that. They know how much I love them and how grateful I am for them. And so they understand that sometimes my work and my time is so limited that it requires me to like to really overwork and miss out on certain things. But luckily my life has been so good. I've had like so much fun from ages 0 to like 11 that I don't really feel the need to like right now is my time to work, hustle. Like that's what I'm feeling right now.
Kids your age are finding out the next best place to hang out, what post to make on Instagram, and all these fun things. Do you not miss doing all of that? Instead, you're putting it all into work and building an app and going around doing these events and talks and whatnot.
First of all, I think it's a misconception that I don't do all of those things. So I'm just like a normal teenager, except I have ambition to do something else as well. And I do those things. I have that exposure. Like I've been offered a cigarette before. It's not like I haven't done those things. I rejected it. So that's because of who I am, and that's because of what I do in my work, that I know I'm so passionate and so like I know I have to do this. This is the thing that gives me adrenaline rush. Nothing else gives me adrenaline rush. So I know that if I party with my friends, it's definitely fun and I love them and I would love to hang out with them. But this is priority because this is my entire life. Like this has made me who I am today. I say this has saved me from getting into things that every teenager is exposed to and gets into, like drugs, or let's say vape is such a big problem today, or just or kids also like have such low self-esteem and all of that self-doubt. It saved me from that. And what I want to do with my work is save other people from feeling that way. That's what I want to do.
So instead of putting your time into the things that could set you on probably a wrong trajectory, you're trying to utilize your time to your benefit and make most out of it in terms of building your company, your brand, and doing the things that excite you right now at the most, right? You talked about drugs and vape and these being such big issues. Take me through what happens in the lives of kids today that they resort to this, or where does this all become available to them? Because this whole world is very alien to me and my generation. So how does a 10-year-old get a cigarette or get a vape into their hand?
So, I was talking to actually our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji about this, and we had an interaction with him. And I asked him, why are kids getting into this stuff and these mental health issues? And he simply said that it's all because of the disintegration of joint families. So earlier, there used to be a lot of joint families, and there was a very strong support system for a child. Dada, dadi, nana, nani, everybody lived in the same house, like kabhi khushi kabhi gum type of family. And that type of family you don't see today. Like there are more nuclear families. The dad is working, the mom is working. So the kid is obviously left alone and kind of growing up on the internet, I would say. So they get exposed to a lot of wrong things, and because of that they end up thinking that it's cool, or they idolize it. And like that, because there is lack of parenting, there is lack of awareness, kids are not able to learn to refuse a vape as well. Because when you don't get that attention and validation from your parents, you look for that attention and validation from your friends, from your peers, right? And they are obviously offering you a vape or a drink or a cigarette, and you don't want to upset them because you know that they are your support system. So you need to say yes, and you feel the need to say yes. That's why you say yes. You get into it once, you take one puff, you take one drink, and then next thing you know, you can't stop it.
So where does your app and the work that you do comes in? Because you're building an app that is for mental health issues, that is for adolescence issues basically, which covers your drug problem, vaping problem, teenage problem, relationships, and various aspects that a kid of your age goes through.
Yeah.
So what kind of help does your app provide to these kids?
So, my app basically, we know that there is disintegration of joint families, and kids are now growing up on the internet. So, my app tries to basically provide them with the best positive content possible. So, they can at least, the kind of content that they're watching will shape them into good human beings. And I see that problem that there are no positive role models for kids and for teenagers out there. And this is my biggest example. I think we spoke about this earlier. Andrew Tate is the biggest example. And like I talked to, there was this discussion we were having in my English class. And a group of boys was like pro Andrew Tate, the group of girls were anti Andrew Tate. And we were discussing him. And they said that, see, we filtered through his, we know all his content isn't good, so we need to filter through his content, right? We need to find the stuff that makes it relevant. And that made me realize, then why isn't there already relevant content for teenagers for them to watch and idolize the right people? It's not presented to them in a way that would help them learn from it or that would appeal to them. And that's why they're watching the wrong people and learning the wrong things. And I'm not saying Andrew Tate talks complete, like, does not talk any sense. He does talk sense. That's why they listen to him. But it's just that he also does not talk sense. If there was one person that only gave positive advice and relevant advice to them, they would 100% listen. There are people that are willing to listen. It's just that it's not there. It's not presented to them. So my app focuses around a good self-help content for teenagers and adolescents to watch, to get to learn from it, to understand that, you know, if they're ever going through something, they're not alone. There are communities on the app that you can join. You can join it and, you know, talk to people about any issues you face, like body insecurity, or maybe like academic validation, stress, exam stress, all of that. It's all there. So you can join these groups and talk to people, because I think ultimately only a teenager can understand what another teenager is going through. Like a lot of this, and I give this example a lot. If you go on these Netflix shows, they make these shows for teenagers, right? But it's not even accurate. No teenager talks like that, engages like that, or does
In fact, I
anything.
was checking out the ages of the actors who play these teenagers
30,
because they are
40.
kissing all the time.
Yeah.
They're doing these, drugs all the time. So I just
Yeah.
checked out that is it even allowed for a teenager by law to act in a show like this? And it's never that.
Yeah.
They're always 24 plus, 25 plus, 27. And I'm just amazed to see that such content, even the makers know. The actors for this content, I cannot get the legal right actors. It's not that they don't have teenage actors. There are teenage actors who are working in other kind of projects, but not these projects which are meant for teenagers. And that's because by law, you cannot have two young adolescents, kids coming in and probably, let's say, kissing or having drinks or going to a party or vaping
Yeah.
or using drugs or whatever. But they
Yeah.
show all of it as so normal on the TV.
Yeah.
Is that
And
the reality of today?
I would say, yeah, to an extent. And it's because of the show. And because the writers are like 40 plus in the writing room, they don't have any opinion from an actual, they've never actually talked to a teenager in real life. So they don't know how we function or what we need. So I'm trying to solve that problem. And I'm not trying to like compete with YouTube or like compete or become that, like that entertainment for teenagers. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to provide them with good content that will go anyway on YouTube, Instagram, all of these platforms. I just want to be an outlet for teenagers where they can deal and process their issues. Because as you said, processing emotions is like, that's what gets you through anything.
Exactly.
Right.
Do you think kids your age, teenagers of today, are avoiding to deal with their emotions?
Yes. And it's such a big problem. And I would say, like, we think that, talking about issues or being vulnerable is a weakness. But in fact, it's a strength. It's really just a strength, because if you're able to come out with your emotions and say, I'm not feeling good today, that gives you the power and the right that you're proud of your emotions, you're owning it. You have nothing to hide, you know. And so a lot of teenagers do that, but I would say mostly my generation is they're moving towards a direction where, okay, it's okay to have a mental health issue. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel sad or stressed. And I see a lot of these teenage influencers that are just doing lovely work. They're showing their pimples, they're showing their scars. Like, it's okay to have them. And I just love seeing that content. It's so needed. all these beauty standards, all this fair and lovely ad. Like, even I've grown up with that, and I've been insecure about my skin. Being a 14-year-old, it's insane. So we need that kind of like that reminder that we're all human and we all have like upper lips, hair, and we have pimples and
the imperfections basically.
Yeah, it's not even an imperfection. It is a perfection. Like, we need to call it a perfection because we are all perfect. There is no standard. There is absolutely no standard. Beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. Like, I think you're beautiful. Somebody else might not. You need to think you're beautiful, and that's all that matters. That's really it.
Anoushka, kids your age are battling with mental health issues. And now, in these times, these issues have been talked about so much, and there is almost a glorification of these issues as well. I'm not saying that the conversation is not healthy. This conversation is something that we need, but we also don't want these issues to become so normalized that you don't move towards a mindset which gets you on a path of self improvement and working towards bettering yourself. What is your thought on that?
I think it's certainly an issue. And like, I'd say that because of this, these shows that come out, and because of this, like, this become kind of like a trend.
Yeah, it's become kind of cool to have a mental health issue,
like,
and just be okay with it.
Yeah.
And in the name of being cool and just portraying an image, you're not doing the real work that's needed because it's a normal thing now, right?
Yeah, and like, I've met these people who like victimize themselves, who do it for attention, and it's gone to such a great extent that I've met people who self-harm for attention. It's insane. And like, there are actually people who are struggling with that, who don't talk about it, who don't come out with it because it's something they're ashamed of. So you taking somebody else's struggle and glorifying it and using it for attention, that's become such a big problem. Mental health, as you said, is a conversation we need to have. It's important. We need to tell people that it's okay to not be okay. We need to remove the stigma. But we also need to remove that over glorification of having a mental health issue. And I also, 13 Reasons Why is a huge, like, if you've heard of the show,
Of course.
it's a huge show, and it talked about all these mental health issues, all of that. And I remember I did a little article about this a year ago, and there was actually, I think, a case where a teenager tried to commit suicide like the protagonist on that show, and then they sued the creators of that show or something. And it is so, like, the way that show portrayed mental health issues was not okay. It was absolutely not okay. They glorified it so much, and like, they treated it like some sort of revenge, and teenagers watching that, they obviously will get influenced, and they will start doing the same things. They will start thinking, if I do the same thing as Hannah on the show, I will get my revenge and I will feel better, but it's not going to help them at all. So 13 Reasons Why was a good concept. You're talking about mental health, it's much needed. But why couldn't you motivate the audience, or motivate the young teenager and young audience watching that, to show maybe like getting help, getting therapy, getting support? They showed the problem, right? They could have also shown
what the problem leads to. Now, that is a
yeah.
dangerous zone, and you're showing that, but it is your moral responsibility to also show the way out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or start a conversation or do something, right? Like, I get you're trying to dramatize it, you're trying to make money off of it, that's fine. But you're also, you have a responsibility, you have viewers, you have young viewers. So you need to think from that perspective also. You need to think that, how would a teenager, like, watch this, and what would they think? So that's why I think we need more teenagers getting consulted about teenage shows.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes about these things, because like we're discussing that glorification of mental health issues has happened to an extent that a particular level of mental health issue has become a norm, has become so commonly acceptable that something bigger than this now needs to be happening with you. That will get you that attention.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like you said, you can get into self-harming, you can get into that zone to cater to that attention, to get
Yeah,
that attention for yourself. So that is something that worries me a lot with this mental health talk going on so much.
absolutely.
And like I said before, of course it is much needed, but we also have to kind of become conscious about
How we talk about
how
it,
we
very
talk about
important.
it, and are we talking mostly about the problem, or are we talking more about the solution?
Yeah, we need to make a show about it, talk about it, then get people to actually, if they're going through an issue, seek help, seek therapy, seek support.
Yeah. They say what you focus on grows. So if you focus on just the problem, it's going to grow, and it has already. Now we need to shift our mindset towards the solution also. I really hope that we have more of these mainstream shows that talk about what happens after the problem and how you come out of it. Not just what happens after and a very sad state of affair where you have lost hope and life, you've given up on things and all that. But what after that? How do you come back from that? And that kind of entertainment, I hope that we see more in the coming days.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And I would say specifically when we're talking about how bad 13 Reasons Why was, let's talk about how good Euphoria is. Like, I've personally not watched Euphoria because
I
it's for
haven't
a
too.
certain age, but the way that it portrays mental health issues, it's so real. Like, if you see the characters are genuinely struggling with really, really big problems, and when you see that, you don't get attracted towards it. You don't want to be in that situation facing that issue. So, like, yeah, and they show what it's really like to, like Rue, who has a drug addiction problem, what it's really like to relapse, to get into that again, or how hard it is to get out of that. And they show all these underlying issues. Like Cassie is a character on the show, and she has an absent father, so she looks for that attention from like men. So that kind of stuff is so needed. Like, I love Euphoria. I talk about it all the time. It's so good. It's like, it is really good portrayal of mental health issues, and that's what a show like 13 Reasons Why that lacked it.
Anushka, you're juggling multiple things in your life, your school, your business, and app that you're building. What is your average screen time? Because it is also one of the major reasons for mental health decline.
Yeah. And my screen time actually was a huge problem during the pandemic because we had online school, then we had homework, then I had my work. So I used to sit in front of a screen for like 9, 10 hours. And because of that, my eyesight also went down, and now I have glasses as well. But now it's definitely gotten less because now I go to school, so I don't have to look at the screen that much. So but that's a problem for mental health decline because you're sitting at a place, you're looking at a screen, and it's just like little icons and buttons moving around. So it's going to one day get to your head, or it's going to make you like feel static and nauseous. And that's a problem. When you feel static in life, then that's when you start heading towards a place where you feel like you're not doing enough, and you like start getting all these doubts and all those complicated feelings. So, but during the pandemic, that was inevitable. You couldn't do anything, but now you definitely
But are you
can.
conscious of your screen time now?
No, I'm
No?
still not. I tried to be, but you can't really, because like your life is online. Everybody's life is online now. You can't do anything about it. I try not to open my phone every 2 seconds. It doesn't work though. I try, but no, it's fine. One day when they invent those like customizable eyes that you can put in and you won't get an eye strain, just waiting for that day.
People like you will only invent that. The way you are building metaverse into your app, and you're, working with the concepts of AI and stuff. I think people like you will only invent the problem first and
And
then
then solve it.
then solve it for us, no? Invent the problem first and give it to all of us. People like us millennials who are yet, we are the last generation that knew the life before digital, right? So for us, this is a huge transition. And every day you are looking for your actual place in this new world. And you are questioning yourself, and you are trying to fit in sometimes, you're not trying to fit in sometimes. Sometimes you feel that this pressure is humongous. Sometimes you feel that, oh, I will go my way. I don't want to adapt to the ways of the new world and stuff. So
Yeah,
there's so much
millennials really
confusion.
have that problem. Like they don't feel, like a proper boomer or an old person. They can't relate to that, and then they can't relate to us. Like us, my generation, we're very particular about our humor, about our what we like, what we don't like. So
Exactly, like how you guys are. The Gen Z is the native digital generation, and the millennials are the last real world,
Yeah.
probably. I don't know how to say that more properly than that. The generation gap, when I was growing up, used to be literally a generation. But now it's like 3 to 4 years.
Mhm.
You can't relate to a person who is 4 years elder to you or
Yeah.
4 years younger to you. Their thoughts,
Absolutely.
the way they look at life, their worldview is just so different. The entertainment they watch, the content they consume, the kind of conversations they have, the friendships they have, the validation things that they have. It's just so different, and
I
you
want to
just
ask
can't.
you something. What
Yeah.
do you like to watch? Like when you.
I am big time into the self improvement content, which I've been told that it's way too boring. Yesterday we had a guest, and the kind of book she reads is all mystery and crime and action and all that, thrillers and all of that. I don't even know that category, so I'm taking my time to define it. I like to read the self improvement category, and I've been doing that consistently for many years now. And that is the kind of content that I watch. So in my phone, I don't have any Netflix app. I don't have any of these apps. I only have YouTube. A, because I have the show that goes
Yeah.
on YouTube, and B, I watch a lot of educational content on YouTube. So I would listen to certain leaders of the world. I would listen to certain corporate leaders, some spiritual leaders, and all of that. TEDx is one of my biggest content platform that I'm
Yeah.
hooked on to. So those are the things that I consume. But yeah, I do get the confusion that all of us have, because I find myself so many times into this situation quite often, where I am just going with the flow and adapting to the new world, new digital world. And I have really a lot of days where I'm like, no, I'm out of social media, I'm out of this digital world, and I'm just going to be in my room and read my book. So, like I said, our generation, my generation, I am really confused how to find my way through it. And we have another kinds of struggles there, and we have different kind of mental health issues. Those happen to us because of all of this evolution and the change that is so fast and so inevitable now.
So, what kind of mental health issues did your generation face?
My generation, a people pleasing has been one of the biggest issue that my generation has dealt with, which I feel has kind of gotten a little better with the generation now. The Gen Z is very clear about saying no. They're
Yeah.
very clear about their boundaries. For a matter of fact, that you guys grow up with having your own personal room and personal space. I grew up in a house where 5 of us were in one room, and I know people who had a better financial background than me, and they had separate rooms. But yet, that culture of being together in that one room, having that one TV, not having your own devices, they gave us
Yeah.
a lot of that time where you were with people all the time. Your boundaries were not very clear, which worked out in a lot of positive ways, but it also worked out in a way that you always were with people and you had to make them happy all the time, consciously or subconsciously. So I
And
think
we
one of
face
the
the opposite problem that we don't talk to people only. So, it everything has its pros and cons,
Absolutely,
I would say.
absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That between the two of us, the millennials and the Gen Z, I think there's a big conundrum between this generation. The gap is just too far wide. We are
Yeah.
trying in our own ways to bridge it. We are walking a few steps. I think you guys are taking a few steps back, where you are realizing that a probable solution to mental health problem is also having a support system, which essentially means having some people around you, which essentially means that looking outside of your room, out of your devices, and getting into a real environment.
Yeah.
So I think we'll probably bridge that gap somewhere, and the conversations are there. I'm hopeful. I know people like you who are already so aware, and from the goodness of their heart and from their personal journey and story of battling with these issues, are happy to offer solutions. And one thing I want to say, whatever else is said about Gen Z, and whatever perspective even I or people my generation see you from, I think you are one of the hardest working generations. The work does not happen on a field. You necessarily don't commute 4 hours in a day and get the job done and all of that. But the kind of work, the kind of processing of the work, the kind of idea churning, the kind of going after those ideas that your generation does, I think it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, we're the startup generation. We really get everything done. And like we as I said, we're very clear. We have this drive, this ambition, and like we are the ones who are going to solve all the
Right.
problems that the boomer generation has created.
You are not the part of the system. You are the system. You are not the part of a company that works in a certain fashion and you will find your way there. You are the company. So the challenges are humongous, but so is the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I'm just grateful to be living here in this time and space.
We were a very stick and carrot generation. So those two things worked the best for us. We
Yeah,
didn't know a middle ground. We were a very zero and one, right and wrong kind of a generation. We didn't
yeah,
know that a huge gray exists. And in fact, the gray is the only reality, which
yeah,
we are coming to terms with now.
yeah.
So,
It's
yeah, there
true.
is a lot of learning that has to happen for us. But I think there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen. And that is where I think it's more difficult. Unlearning is breaking out of the patterns that you already have. And I think that is always more difficult than forming new patterns,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So that is the struggle for me right now, but I hope we both find our, ways into this world, and ways that lead us towards a better mental and emotional health. Anushka, from a teenager's perspective, what are the three things that one can do to keep their mental health in check?
Firstly, create a support system around you. Get your family, your friends, repair your relationships if there are any, because you simply cannot get through anything alone. You need somebody there with you. You need them to guide you, to help you, to listen to you. That's very important. Secondly, build your self confidence. And how are you going to do that? Well, work on yourself. Life doesn't just happen. You need to make it. You need to find your journey, make your journey. So, a lot of people come up to me and they're like, how do I become confident? And I ask them, why should you be confident? What have you done to be confident? So do things that are hard, and do things that you can look back upon and say, wow, I
I
really
could do
did that.
that.
Yeah. So build that self confidence for yourself. And thirdly, surround yourself with positive energy, and find an outlet that helps you direct that negative energy or any negative feelings and put it in there. So whether it's like a dancing, whether it's just like talking to somebody that helps you relieve the stress, or doing something that helps you find an outlet, you just erase all your negative energy into that, and you surround yourself with positive energy by maybe I'm personally a very religious person, and I'm a Hanumanji bhakt, so I like to read the Hanuman Chalisa, something like that. So just those three things, and you will see an improvement in your mental health and your mental well-being.
Do you know Hanuman Chalisa verbatim?
No, I'm actually learning it right now. The
Okay.
problem is I'm not that good at Hindi, and it's something I'm a bit ashamed of, because in 5th grade I dropped Hindi. I took Spanish instead. So like I can still speak like casual Hindi, like kaise ho, but I can't read Hindi.
I
I'm
know, and
kind of
Hanuman
illiterate.
Chalisa is not Hindi, so
It's
it's even more tough.
yeah. So I like, my dad found me the English version. Like like
It's just
it's
so
written in
strange. This
English
is completely
letters.
the opposite world and the opposite problem. In our times, we would have dictionaries like which will translate Hindi to English, and now it's the other way. I mean, who would have thought that world would evolve so much so fast?
But that's the thing I regret. I really don't want to lose connect to my culture, and I see that this is also a huge problem. I think your generation was, I don't know if it's the right word, but was the whitewashed one. And my generation is the one that we actually are trying to find our desi roots and connect back to our culture. So whether it's just trying to, the Bollywood movies that we all know and love, we talk about that openly. I think your generation was a bit like kind of ashamed about that, and more towards the okay, like English movies. Ye
Our
cool
generation,
hai.
yes, you're right. And
Hmm.
our generation made a lot of atheists, made a lot of these kids because it was so
Yeah.
uncool, because religion, culture, customs were never taught to you. They were just forced upon you.
Absolutely.
Like you said, whitewash generation, that's what we were. And when anything is just thirst upon you like that, you develop a natural resistance to it
Yeah.
without even understanding what it fully is. You only take the cons and you say, this thing is not for me. But you
Exactly.
don't see the other pros.
You have gone you I think religion is important. I mean, obviously it's up to you. You want to be an atheist, that's completely right, that's up to you, you're right. But as a parent, or as somebody who maybe wants to pass on your religion, don't try to force it upon your child. Like you have to like you understand that's another human being. So you need to consider like what to present it to them in the natural and organic form that it is in, and talk to them about spirituality, about what religion means to you. And set that example. If they see you doing puja every day, if they see you, trying to become the best version of yourself, they will automatically learn that and do that as well.
And yes, it is on the parents and elders to serve religion or these concepts, cultural concepts to you in a way that is digestible for you.
Yeah.
And they also have to evolve with their definitions of religion.
Yeah.
Let's say my mom, when I was young, she religiously it wasn't allowed for me to enter a mandir if I was on my periods. But today she has absolutely no problem.
Yeah.
So she has evolved her definition of religion that way. I'm saying certain practices, how you can make it like, I know a lot of girls my age said that, this is wrong and it shouldn't be this thing. That's why I'm not religious.
Yeah.
Okay, a part of it maybe wasn't as appropriate to our times
Those
that
were
we live
different
in.
times,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe it was appropriate at a different time. There are tens of theories of why it was that and why women were prohibited from going to the temples and all of that. That's a
Yeah.
long debate for another time. But what I'm saying is that probably that rule or that application of religion does not stand in today's time. So we need to probably evolve with the religion, and that onus lies on elders, on parents, to serve it to you in a way that you're able to connect better to your roots, because connecting to the roots and taking that journey within is going to really help you find your real center, and from there you'll be able to operate in a better manner.
Yeah, and not only like your religion, you can also expose them to other religious books. The Bible has some great learnings, and teach them everything. But make them a more well-rounded person with an open mind. And tell them that your religion isn't the only one. There are other religions out there. You need to have respect, and you need to have consideration for those other people with other beliefs. Like that exists. You need to know that.
Absolutely, all the religions are flooded with stories of kindness, of compassion, of love,
Absolutely.
of generosity.
It's all we all look up to the same God, right? It's just we look up to them in different forms and different ways. So we all have a different connection to the superior being, right? And it's important to teach our kids that whatever connection you have in whatever way, it's completely all right. That's a personal thing that you need to keep to yourself. Like even when my family and I pray, we go to the mandir every Tuesday. When we pray, we don't pray out loud. It's something that's personal, and we never tell each other what we're wishing for, what we're doing. So yeah, I think certainly religion
Yeah,
is very
building better
powerful.
practices around it, building practices with certain degree of logic also.
Yes,
Not just
absolutely.
thrusting it upon kids and saying that, oh, you
Make
are.
kids read the Gita. And if you read the Gita, everything, if you've somehow related to your real life, the daily life, it is so relevant. It has all the knowledge in the world. You just need to apply it. That's it. Everything is in that amazing book. And I also have to, my dad has actually read it. He's talked to me about it. And I have to personally go read it myself as well to see just how incredible it is.
You're so right. I have read Bhagavad Gita a couple of times. I've done a course that was all around Bhagavad Gita. I do ISKCON lectures. It is such a great holistic life tool. It is not just a religious book, although it has gods, it has elements of religion and all of that. But the kind of knowledge that's there in that book. And it's not just impractical stuff, it's the real applicable to my issues of today kind of
Yes.
knowledge that Gita has. If those benefits were known more, and if it was served to the younger generation in a platter that they will be able to eat from, I think there's no book like Gita.
Yes, absolutely.
Anushka, your parents have been very supportive of your dreams from very early on, and they sort of integrated their lifestyle around yours to give an environment where you could flourish like this. But there are so many kids who don't get that environment, who don't get that parenting, and it's very unfortunate. The parents don't get their issues, they don't get their dreams, they don't get their aspirations. So, what is your advice to parents on parenting the Gen Z generation?
So I would say the definition of being a parent has always been the same. Every parent loves their child unconditionally, right? But I think with the times, the type of parenting, definitely it needs to be evolved, it needs to be changed. The way that maybe your parents had parented you is very different from how my parents are parenting me today, or future parents, like how I will parent my kids. It'll be very, very different, right? So for me, like, there are parents I've seen in my own school, maybe. I go out and I see these parents who their kids have Apple Watch, their kids have Apple laptop, they have Lamborghini, they have access to everything that you could think of and that you could dream of. They live in a beautiful house. But nobody talks to each other. They're not even there for each other emotionally. They live in these big farmhouses with 3 dogs and like God knows what. But they're not emotionally available. And you give your child like 5 Apple Watches, but you're not there for them. That kid is still going to suffer. That kid is not a lucky kid. And I'm lucky that I come from a family that is financially, that is capable to provide me such an education, and to that I have access to such resources and things that I would say I'm certainly privileged. I am definitely privileged in terms of my education, the kind of resources I have access to. But I'm most privileged because of my parents, because of the type of parenting I got. They didn't just hand me off to a maid and then expect me to be perfect 15 years later. They've spent time on me, they've groomed me, they've been there for me in my greatest of successes, they've been there for me when I lost. And that is so important. Being around your child isn't just taking them to birthday parties, or like or like or like buying them things, or even just being there. You need to talk to them. You need to listen to them. It's so important. You don't even need to give them gyan. बस उनकी बात सुनो. What are they trying to say? They're always trying to tell you something, right? So it's up to you to shut up and listen to them and actually understand.
It's very important for parents to now be emotionally more upgraded and intelligent. That is when you realize that your child needs you emotionally too. And it's not just in theory, in practical, and practical is way more difficult than theory always.
Yeah.
So
And
just saying that I'm available and I love my kid and all of that is
Yeah.
okay, but being actually really there when they're stuck or when they're succeeding, it's very, very important and crucial.
You said it, man. Like, just be there for your child and listen to them when they're upset, listen to them when they're going through any emotion. And as you said, emotional intelligence, recognizing the signs that maybe your child is getting bullied, or the signs that something is going on. You need to observe your child, and even if they're not talking to you about something, you need to have that awareness that something is going on. And all parents have that. It's that parental intuition.
You just need
get.
to have that interest in your child's life.
Yeah.
You need to have that sort of detachment from your own life to be invested into your child's that much more.
Yeah, or detachment, I would say, focus on yourself first, because as they say, पहले अपना mask लगाओ, फिर अपने बच्चे का mask लगाओ. If you're not emotionally okay and mentally well yourself, you can never be there for your
Of
child.
course.
And actually, I was having this discussion with my dad, and we were talking about divorced parents and the effect on the child. And my parents said, my dad said that even if you want to divorce your partner, then you should actually just stay together for the sake of the child. And I completely disagree with that. I say there are kids who have divorced parents and they are doing great. They are very happy. Compare that to a kid whose parents should be divorced, but they're still together. They are actually suffering. So if you're not happy in your marriage, and if you don't love your husband, and if you can't think of starting a life journey with them, then forget your child, man. Then there is no way that child's life is going to be good. Even if you're divorced, you can work together and just be there for your child through a partnership. Marriage is partnership.
I'm smiling while you're talking about this. Not that I don't understand the sensitivity of this issue. Of course I do. But I have friends who I have these discussions with almost everyday basis. They are into an extremely unhappy marriage, but they have a child and they want to stick on and continue with the marriage for the sake of that child. Now, I just feel that if between two people, the energy is not of absolute love, absolute care, and absolute devotion for each other, then whatever that energy is, which is not love, that is going to the child.
Yeah.
Because it's not the words that you say to them, the education that you provide to them, or the clothing that you give them. It's the energy that you transfer. And if your home does not have that energy of absolute love, it's not anyway a flourishing ground for any child.
Yeah.
Anushka, I'm so happy to have this conversation with you today. And I'm just so amazed with the kind of emotional maturity you have at 13 that I probably struggled with at 30. You know, these are completely two different worlds that I'm sort of seeing coming together. And I'm just so happy that your generation really knows what they want out of their life and are not afraid or ashamed to go get it. I wish you the best with all that is in store for you, all that you're building and creating for yourself. Make us all proud. I know the launch of your app is scheduled for a month or so from now on.
It's coming up soon.
I wish you the best for that, and I really hope that you make us all proud.
Thank you.